Hello, everyone. I am Sir Runner. I'm one of the developers between the Third Age, the best Lord of the Rings mod for Victoria 2. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about the upcoming subversion that we'll be releasing, version 051. Um, and so we do have a couple things just in the changelog here, but we'll be going over a little bit more detail than what the changelog really gives. You can find a similar set of stuff in the actual files for the mod, literally in the, I think it's called changelog.md. So the primary thing that this version is changing is what we call the political rework. So that's going to be stuff anywhere from the leaders to ideologies, reforms, a couple of text changes as well. So things like we've gone from just generic good, neutral, evil namings to like anti-Sauron, opportunistic, and I forget what Sauron stuff right off the Sauronite, um, and opportunistic. So a handful of text changes. We've renamed a couple of governments, that sort of thing. The big changes do come through with the reforms and the leader side. So first of all, leader portraits unfortunately are gone. As cool as they weren't very flexible and required a lot of cleanup from the mod team to really get them functioning as intended, and yet we were still seeing a whole bunch of issues related to them. So what we opted on doing is instead kind of going a little bit back to what the vanilla game does with like national values, but instead of doing that, we chose to go with call it like cultural heirlooms, for example. And then, in order to better simulate leaders, we go ahead and made those the parties, and then the ideologies are still interest groups, but they're a little bit more specific. So instead of just a generic nobility one that exists, don't get me wrong, that exists. It'll get phased out eventually as more and more of these groups get added. But we have like the House of Bard as an interest group instead of a generic nobility. But if we go check out someone that doesn't really have flavor, we can see that the generic like nobility interest group still exists. So specifically for the Barding Realm, you got the Fishers Guild, Master of Laketown, House of Bard, and if we go take a look at say like the Woodland Realm, for example, we have the House of Orifer for Thranduil and Legolas. We have the house half Elven for Elrond, Elrohir, and Eladon. And for like pretty much all of the existing leaders have an interest group associated with them that just it's going to exist. There's not one there. Here we go. So there's going to be a smattering. Basically, just wherever there was a portraited leader before, there's going to be an interest group now. And so another good thing about this is that this means that pops can quite literally support leaders and houses. So if we want to do some Civil War aspect and we want to tie it to the regions that support a specific ruler, that's a lot easier to do than to try to track it with variables and flags and other background things that can very easily go wrong. And so we did bring back a couple of the old policies that we kind of scrapped from vanilla. So things like, I think it's the tax policy, I believe, is one of them. Maybe the trade policy too. I forget exactly what it was, but there are some policy changes that came through. These things also got a little bit of a rebrand as well. So a lot of the functionality is the same, just under different names. The other major change that we got is with the reforms. So the reforms are just downright better as you go down. That is 100% intended. So the goal is to kind of get down as like to the bottom for every single one. Granted, maybe perhaps not for the voting ones. Those ones probably are going to be up to whatever you want to play. If you want to play as like a monarchy, or if you want to go down to the republic type. But generally speaking, they just get better as you go down. And this is 100% intentional. This is because of pops. So the pops can only ever support the next item. So like for example, when you're on 5% land ownerships, pops can only support 10% land ownership or below. They will never support 5%. And if there was like a a higher one here, like a 0%, for example, they would never be able to support that. That is just a hard-coded game mechanic. And at least from the mod team's perspective, trying to finagle some sort of system where it's a trade-off, we didn't want to have to fight against the built-in mechanics of the game for that. And I suppose one other thing to mention here is that government type, this one is automatically set dependent upon your government. So if we go into the ledger here and we find where the political rules are, you'll see the government type along here. And for like example, the Dominion of Shelob, because it's technically a Sauron Dominion as the government type, that is a dictatorship. There's gonna be a lot of monarchies around here, but you know, we got stuff like the republics over here have a republican government type, and all this really does is just dictate who can be in your upper house. If it's dependent upon the ruling party, if it's dependent upon the upper class, or if it's everyone. And that's all of the major changes. We did go ahead and do changes to stuff like rebels. That is a 30-minute discussion as to what it is. So it's something that I just recommend trying it out to find out. And we have gone ahead and done a whole bunch of other background changes. We did go ahead and add a little bit more content for the Barding Realm. We now have the ahistorical paths. They are the high points are described within the rulers here. So if you're curious what can be found with them, they're in here. But for the rest, I just recommend trying out the mod, seeing what's changed, and seeing if you like it. I hope you have a good day, everyone.